Welcome to the Core Women Podcast. My name is Dr. Summer Watson. I'm a doctor of psychology, podcaster, published author, coach, producer of documentary empowerment films, and empowerment seminars. This podcast is a special place for the hearts and souls of women. It is a place where women share their journeys, strength, resiliency, strategy, and passions. Today on the show, I'd like to welcome Laura Staley, who is the founder of Cherish Your World, where Laura passionately helps people thrive by guiding them to a holistic transformation of space, heart, mind, body, and soul. She has her PhD in political science, is an author, is certified with the Western School of Feng Shui, and a columnist and contributing writer for Biz Catalyst 360. We have so much to talk about, so let's get right into this, Laura, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Summer. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Laura. So I'm going to get right into this because we do have a lot to talk about. So I want you to give us a glimpse of your journey. And if you would, could you please touch on some of the key moments in your journey that stand out for you or were starting points or triggers towards your own personal transformation?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many pivot points. Oh my goodness. Well, okay. So one, I'll just touch on a handful. It's kind of like, we're watching It's a Wonderful Life, and here we go.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so I'm 9 years old in a household that was really, really dysfunctional, really, really tough, really challenging. You know, a mom with emotional, mental, undistinguished, but clearly, wow, just not healthy ways of interacting with me and us kids and my dad, etc. And I had this sexual molestation and all this crazy and bullies at school. And I had this moment where I'm looking in the mirror, and it was like a God moment where this voice came down and it just said, "You are loved. You are here to love and be loved. We're getting out of here. Don't know how, don't know when, but you will get out of here." And I literally remember I was wearing this green top, and I remember looking into my eyes, Summer. Okay, fast forward to I'm graduating now with my PhD, and I had been told by a professor in that program, I was one of 4 women, who said, "You're just going to have a baby." I was married throughout that program. And he just said, "You're going to have a baby, you're going to leave." And, you know, kind of had those old school beliefs. And I just kind of was like that mustered, that courage and that grit to go, yeah, okay, I'm going to use that energy to actually fuel my walking across this stage. And I walked across that stage, and I had been honored to teach for 5 years at Ohio Wesleyan University, my alma mater, which was a huge, humbling, honoring experience as a part-time assistant professor. I loved that experience, honored it. And yet I knew how I wanted to celebrate my getting my PhD. Guess how I wanted to celebrate? By getting pregnant and having what turned out to be my daughter 9 months later. Like, the universe was just like, and you can't even imagine the number of people that I kept telling, you know, like my in-laws. And of course, thank goodness, my then husband was down with it. I was like, yeah, I want to start a family. And because it was a deep core passion to be a mom and a full-time mom, even at a time when that wasn't a popular choice. You know, a lot of my friends just immediately, you know, or not maybe immediately, maybe they nursed for a couple months and then they were like right back into the workforce. I had a friend who was like, "Yeah, I don't want to be on that mommy train." And I'm sitting there going, "I'm an engine on that train." But I knew even in college, even as a little girl, that being a mother was a passion and an expression, and it was just like core in my soul. So, you know, like being one of the 4 in a PhD track, you know, and now I'm like one of, you know, 100 who's choosing to be a full-time mother. So that was a pivot moment. And then we have a flood of our finished basement. Summer. The kids are really little. I've now have my second child. So, by the way, yes, I walked away from the field of political science being an
Wow. Okay.
academic,
All together.
like all together. I remember the moment that I kept, On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. I kept that book. I still have that book to this day, but I literally let go of all my graduate notes, all the notes that I had created when I taught those for 5 years at Ohio Wesleyan University. I let it all go. I did clutter clearing before I knew what clutter clearing was, right? But I knew that full-time parenting was part of my passionate path. And I loved it and learned it and knew I had to break the cycle from what I had grown up with. So it was actually a very sacred, profound and powerful walk to be a full-time parent and resolve all the traumas inside, or definitely have at it, right? Because I did patterns that I needed to break with my young kids. So then we have this flood, and my son is like 18 months old. My daughter is, and it's Valentine's night, 5 inches of water, rain, snow, broken pipe, just all the, and, a month later, and we lose a lot of belongings. And a month later, I'm with a relative who says, oh my gosh, you're just going to love Feng Shui. It's about, and I'm like, Feng Shui, well, I don't know what this is. And she goes, no. And this relative at the time had a beautiful home. I loved her home. It was such an inspiration to me. And she goes, no, it's about having your physical space really inspire you. So she hands me this book by Tara Catherine Collins, The Western Guide to Feng Shui Room by Room. I open it up, and I just open it up, and it says, live with belongings that you love. And I'm like, wait, what? It's stuff. I just lost a lot of stuff, right?
Right. Right.
And yet I'm like intrigued, because I'm like, whoa, really? And then I read the entire book, because she's like, oh, just take it. I'll get another copy. It's okay. Just take it with you. So I finish it on the plane. I walk back into our house. So it was a finished basement that's still in process of being restored. And I look around, and I have this unbelievable aha moment that's layered, right? The first aha is I'm surrounded by hand-me-downs that I loathe. Wow. Like, no, because it's like belongings that you love. I'm like, okay, oh my God, I have belongings that I despise.
Right.
Oh my God, it's not stuff, right? And then the deeper aha was like, oh my gosh, I have a hand-me-down life. Now, mind you that I loved being a parent. I still love being a mom. My kids are grown now. But it was just like, oh my God, I had these scripts handed to me, including PhD in political science. And then they wanted me to be a senator. And then so-and-so says, you need to be this and that, and I'm like, oh my God, I had been an accumulator of people handing me scripts of who I should be and what I should do with my life energy. And a lot of that did, happen to come from my parents. And, especially my mom, and it would shape shift every single day. One day she'd be happy that I was a mom, but the next day she was like, you need to be the first woman president. I'm like, can you imagine? Oh my God.
Well, I think that we have not these moments, but during our life, we have people imposing their values and beliefs upon us. And we don't realize that's happening until we're able to step back and we get to this age and we go, what do I value? What is my passion? How do I look at this? How do I know? And until you start doing some of your own personal work about what values you are actually in congruence with and walking in congruence with, there is when you start actually being able to kind of like do the work, blossom, be able to find that passion. But until you actually find your foundation of your own values and beliefs, that's really tough. And so it sounds like when you first started those points in your life, those transition points, you began to fully recognize like, wow, okay, I'm going to be a mom. This is what I want to do. I want to break some cycles. I'm going to put aside this PhD in political science because this was something that I was kind of told to do. You already had the gumption. It was already innate. You already had innate resiliency. You had that energy, that wisdom. So you were beginning to develop into yourself by saying, I am setting these boundaries or this construct that aligns with who I am versus what everybody else is telling me to be. So here you are, you're down in the basement, you're looking around, and you're saying, I have a hand-me-down life. At this point, what did you do? Because seriously, these things have come with you probably over the years, you've accumulated them. But it's funny too that they're down in the basement.
Well, actually, I had lost a lot that was down in the basement. So we're not talking
Gotcha.
about the first floor that
first
was
floor.
intact. It was like, beautiful. And the thing is, it included jewelry and clothing. Like,
Right.
really? Like, I didn't even know what clothes, like seriously, what clothes actually felt good on my body. I mean, no,
Wow,
like,
really?
like I had been somebody's mannequin. Like,
wow.
This is what you should wear, and these are the dishes you need to eat off of. I began purging and purging and purging, and I had already lost. And here's the important piece about that is I didn't immediately run out to stores or well, no, I didn't have a laptop at that time, but I didn't start, clicking buttons, mostly because I didn't have a laptop at that time, but I cleared. And then I did that deep soulful work like you pointed to of, wow, I began asking myself, what do I actually love? What kind of clothing feels good on my body? What kind of earrings do I want to put in my ear? Do I want a third pierced? Oh, oh my goodness. Then to be able to have that clarity and become happier and more joyful in the place of that volitional freedom to actually express my tastes and preferences in my own home. Oh my gosh, right?
Right.
It's huge. It was such an incredible epiphany that it springboarded me to now, a lifetime passion to bring this kind of holistic mind, heart, space transformation to other people. So anyone else, and of course my friends were like, oh, come to my house, because I just got so excited. Like I didn't care if they paid me. I was just like on fire. Like, oh my God, this wisdom, these ideas, they're so rich and meaningful. And and it opened me, and it continues to open me. I mean, just the other day, I looked at a pair of clogs and I turned them over and I'm like, oh, okay, these get to be donated, right? Now they were clogs I loved, but they were worn out, and so I continue to be a student of this wisdom and a teacher and a guide, and to ask those deeper questions of people, because I know in my soul that it's not just about the thing. It's not about the jewelry that was a hand-me-down from whoever, right? It's about, oh my God, the quality life that a person wants to live, and about maybe even the experiences that you want to have, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, because I honestly don't necessarily want another bauble. That's just me. I'm not judging anybody who's shopping right now. It's the holidays and all that.
Because putting for a real quick second, and I think you made a valid point just there, Laura, is that you had your process.
Yeah.
And you determined what was right for you.
Yes.
As will others.
Yeah.
And so you were just full of this energy and this excitement, which is you found your system. You found your value. You found the values that you can invest in, which is investing in yourself.
Yeah.
And you're willing and ready to share what you've learned. And I think that is so critical and so important, because a lot of people don't even know where to begin. And if this resonates with somebody, this is what this is all about. That is what is fantastic, because somebody can pull out and say, you know what, I really like that aspect of how she learned, how she did her own self-development. So this is exciting to hear. So I want to thank you for pointing out these really critical moments in your life that had meaning and value for you. Now, I do want to kind of move on, and I have a question that kind of piggybacks on what we're talking about here. And that's about the principles of Feng Shui and how this practice had you blossom, or you've blossomed from this knowledge, these principles?
Oh, God, I love that. So there are three. Everything has energy, right? And for some people, they're like, okay, so scientific, it's the energy. If you broke things, physical things down, you can see the energy in people, that they're alive with energy, that your pets are alive with energy. But the things actually are because we have stories and feelings and emotions and associations with our belongings. Like I remember that I was with my daughter when she helped me pick out this sweater, right? Just as an example, I know where I was when I took this photo and chose to have it blown up and put on the wall. So our belongings have meaning, and that's the life energy that's in them. So everything has energy, everything. Not just people, not just plants, not just trees, but everything. So that's the first one, is alive with energy. And the second one is we're connected to everything. And so the invitation from Feng Shui is empower your connections. So who are you connected to? What activities are you connected to? And that even includes your connection to the food that you put in your body. Is it supportive of your body? The activities that you do, are they empowering and inspiring to you? And then the third is that everything is changing. And so life is dynamic. I am not the same woman I was, even with our first conversation. So many things happened between our first conversation and this moment right now that I am not that same woman. So it's like, I know people can be really resistant to change, and it can be scary and frightening, but it's also exciting and energizing. And again, the wisdom of Feng Shui, which is a 3,000-year-old wisdom, invites us to embrace change. So empower connections, live with things that you love, and embrace change, because change is about evolution. It's about growth. It's about staying open to what really cool, exciting thing could happen next. And it could include difficult things, right? But that's life, and if we live open-hearted to the change, we can adapt, shift, pivot, and orient from our grounded principles and commitments and deepest values, like you were pointing to earlier in our conversation. Because once a person gets really clear about their deepest, most heartfelt commitments, whatever they are, and each person gets to choose that for themselves, man, that becomes your anchor, no matter what big wave comes crashing over you, right? Because you'll still get up the next morning knowing that your deepest commitment is to quality relationships, or your deepest commitment is to, grow your business, or your deepest commitment is to your children and your family, and the quality of those relationships, and to loving them in new ways that you didn't even know were possible yesterday, so that they feel and experience your love, like whatever that is. Yeah.
Right.
Great question.
Thank you so much. And I think that you have touched on so many important things here. First of all, I asked the question about the principles because I think a lot of times we leave people at a point of inspiration and we go, ooh, we've left them inspired. But what happens is, a lot of times I feel like we didn't leave them and we're kind of failing in giving back, in that we didn't give them tools to utilize. Here we're giving tools to utilize. We're saying you're alive with energy. We're connected. You're empowering these things. Everything has life. So what does that mean? That has meaning. There is a process there. There are tools there. There are things to think about. And as you begin to put these things into practice, to adopt these things into your life, to understand how to use these things, that next flooded basement isn't going to be like, oh my gosh, the basement is flooded. It's going to be like, okay, the basement's flooded and we've got this. This is okay.
Exactly.
We've got this.
Exactly.
Or, oh my gosh, I just got my PhD. I'm pregnant. No, this is a gift. This is how I go through this, and this is how I honor this. So there's tools here. And I love that, because this is why a lot of times I take these questions step by step by step, because it's a process. It parallels a process that people go through in their lives. And I love you being able to tell me about your life story, what you value, what you found to value, how you now live your life, and the process that you went through to attain these kind of principles and adopt them into your life and how you utilize them. So I'm going to move on, because it leads to my next question. Can you talk about your business and how that developed, how Cherish Your World developed?
Oh, wow. So I got trained and certified in 2000. Well, I did the training in 2003. So in back of that book, there was information about training.
Okay.
So I did that. It was the best. And there was all this homework, and it was like the best homework I ever did in my whole life, right?
Cool.
7-day immersive, and then additional work we had to complete to be certified. So I was certified in 2004 and launched Cherish Your World. Now, I was still a full-time parent. So it was still extremely part-time. And yet I kept at it, kind of word of mouth, and, and eventually got a website. That web designer unfortunately died of cancer at a very young age, but he empowered me with tools. And then I got the opportunity to upgrade, and then I had the whole life implode, right? Because the implodes just keep going, right? And so back in 2015 or 2014, sorry, my 22-year marriage came to an end the same day that I drove my daughter off to college. Yeah, quite a day. And in the space of, gosh, do I get a survival job? Do I, and yet I kept standing up at this business networking and saying, oh my gosh, blah, 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 Cherish Your World, da, 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 da. And the facilitator of that business networking, Ken Lazar, who I will forever be grateful for, looked at me at one point and said, Laura, you must do this. This is your heart and soul passion. And I got tears in my eyes, because he saw and heard me beyond what I thought, because I was so full of fears at that juncture. And yet I was like, oh, yes, I can do this. I can do this. So back in 2015, I went all in. My son, left. He went to Georgia and then out to California. Marriage had ended. Daughter's off in college. Wow. I went from full-time mom with 2 kids and 2 dogs to single woman with 1 dog, because I lost a dog, and there was so much loss. I mean, so much loss. And I downsized, and I moved to a whole new house. And so then it became, oh, wow, I didn't even know what LinkedIn was. So, but I get on LinkedIn, I get on Facebook, and the writing continues, and I publish a book in 2016, Let Go Courageously and Live with Love. It's these stories with ideas, from these lived experiences from my own life, with gentle suggestions for people and questions to ask yourself, because I know how I don't see myself as this, bossy person. And then 2 years ago, was blessed to move to Black Mountain, North Carolina. And so and now in the space of the pandemic, honestly, I had that aha moment, like, oh my gosh, I can Zoom consult with anybody in the world. Now, I had a consult not too long ago with a woman in Columbus, Ohio, because on my website right now, it says Columbus, Ohio and Black Mountain, the Asheville area of North Carolina. Right. But I'm like, oh my God, we're all on Zoom. And people can show me their spaces with their laptop. So it's kind of like, because I was very attached to walking into spaces to serve clients. I really wanted to work. My love is working with residential clients, and I have absolutely served small business owners in their business space and worked with them to arrange and ask those deeper questions of what were they creating for their business, that, what was challenging and what they wanted to create. But I think my favorite people to work with are residential folk, and then also anybody who's curious, right? Who just wants to know, how do I have a quality life? Right. So that emotional intelligence, the shedding limited beliefs and asking those deeper questions of a person. So we can start anywhere, start with that cluttered drawer, and then all the thoughts and emotions that come up as you touch all those things, because it's not just, oh, what sparks joy? It's like, oh, what might spark grief, and maybe you want to hold on to that because it helps you grieve.
Right.
And so my business has been an evolution and an absolute expression of grit and growth and perseverance and being unstoppable, because divorce and finance and and yet that deep, having these moments of doing the deeper work, I knew it's my soul's calling. And it's just kind of expanded to what I like calling holistic transformation, because that just feels inclusive of the inner work. So I'm not just about, because I've had people go, isn't it flower arranging? And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, right.
Yes, if you love fresh flowers in your house, put them everywhere that you love fresh flowers. So I'm not, saying but that's just a tiny little piece of what this wisdom can bring to people in altering the quality of their lives. So as my own life has transformed, and I'm now living in this beautiful, the most soulful place, like it's my piece of heaven on earth, Black Mountain, North Carolina. It is the most beautiful, exquisite place that I could have ever chosen to live, with a love relationship, right? And it's like, okay, I'm walking the talk. And I'm not perfect at this. Like I have friends who are like talking to me, go, okay, Laura, really, seriously, what's in your nightstand right now? And I'm like, and I have a moment because I've taught them, and so they're asking me the same questions that I asked them, a month ago, and they're like, and so, but it's so great, right? Because then you become a team for one another, and it's like that moment where I'm looking at those clogs and going, oh yeah, these need to go. Yeah, I'm no longer walking around in, broken shoes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, there is a great analogy, the broken shoes.
Right.
It started out as maybe a little broken, and now we know what we need to do with those broken shoes.
Yeah.
And that is move them on.
Yeah.
They had their time, they had their place. Now it's time to go, move on.
Exactly.
And so you've written 2 books, Live Inspired, Let Go Courageously, and Live with Love, Transform Your Life with Feng Shui. And second book, Cherish Your World gift book, 100 tips to enhance your home and life. So that is fantastic. 2 books. And you've come through this journey.
3. I've got 3, Summer.
Oh, you have 3 books. Okay, you have another. Okay, what's the other?
I'm sorry, Live Inspired. It just launched in April.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's essays, all self-discovery. Well, there's Feng Shui. I mean, I talk about clearing clutter for sure. That's still a theme in there, and letting go, that's, yeah. So sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm glad you did. Thank you so much, because on your bio, I only saw 2. So I want to that is fantastic. So where would people find these books?
Okay. So, Sacred Stories Publishing, Amazon. So Let Go Courageously and Live Inspired, they could go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Live Inspired independent bookstores also. And I love supporting independent bookstores. So it's available that way. And then the Cherish Your World gift book is only available through my website. So if they were to go to cherishyourworld.com, I will mail out that book to them, because I have those copies and worked with a promotional person to create the gift book. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that information. Now, as we come to the close of our interview, I always like to ask one last question. And that is, if you were to leave the listeners with some words of wisdom, what would they be?
Find the courage to deeply love yourself and value yourself. I know a lot of women struggle with worthiness. And so it's like this process of shedding what I call the fear shame and going deep, deep inside to know your worth and dignity and value, and to let go of what other people have said about what's possible for you, because they had no clue. They have no clue what's possible for you, but you do.
Right.
You know, deep, deep in your heart. That's where it lives, in your heart. You know what's possible for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Laura, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you, Summer. It was an utter joy to be with you and in this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. If you would like to connect with Laura, you can find her at LinkedIn at Laura Staley 1, cherishyourworld.com, loveyourspaceleveyourlife.com, on Facebook at Laura Staley Cherish, and on Instagram at Cherish Your World. If you need a strategic empowerment coach, contact me. If you want to tell your story of empowerment or how you have reconstructed your life to drive change, send me a video or an email of your story, providing permission to use it on my social media platforms. If you want to be featured on my podcast, reach out to me at info@corewomen.com. I want to hear from you and to get to know you. You are now part of the Core Women home. Let's get to know each other. Let's learn from one another. Please follow Core Women on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please let your women friends know about this podcast. If you write about Core Women in your social media posts, please hashtag Core Women. This is all about women. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Core Women, and please stay tuned for continued growth of the Core Women movement. Let's grow and drive change together.